Welcome, Spartans, to Mission Debrief. We're playing every mission of the mainline Halo video game series in chronological order, discussing our experiences and sprinkling in a little lore along the way. If you'd like to play along and have your thoughts read on the show, email us at podcastevolved@gmail.com or drop us a tweet at podcastevolved on Twitter. We'll be starting to finish the fight in Arrival and Sierra 117 from Halo 3 on the next episode. This episode, we're recapping Halo 3 ODST and discussing how it stacks up against the other games we've played so far. I'm your host, Colin Perkins, alongside David Arnold.
Hello, everybody.
And Aaron Campbell.
Hi, guys.
That's not Krista.
That's not Krista.
I know.
All right,
Much more beautiful.
All right, I'm going to cover off everything we've done so far from like a game proper standpoint. If you've listened to these recaps before, you've already heard these, but I'm adding ODST into the mix. So here we go. Deep breath. All right, we played 4 games so far. We're over halfway through, like the mainline series. We got 3 left. So in Halo Reach, we suited up as Noble 6 and were deployed with a team of Spartans to do everything we could to repel the invading Covenant forces from having to admit defeat and help the Pillar of Autumn escape from the planet's glassing. That was from July 24th, 2552 to August 30th, 2552. Then, in Halo CE, we dropped out of slip space and explored the mysterious Halo ring that Cortana randomly brought us to. As Master Chief, we discovered the Flood and realized we had to destroy the ring in order to save all life in the galaxy. That was from September 19th, 2552 to September 22nd, 2552. In Halo 2, the mystery of the Covenant and their diabolical motivations are finally revealed. Playing as both the Arbiter and Master Chief, we defend Earth, discover another Halo ring, fight more Flood, witness the downfall of the Covenant, chat with the Gravemind, team up with the betrayed Sangheili race to stop Tartarus from firing Delta Halo, and then chase after the Prophet of Truth to finish the fight on Earth. Oof, there's a lot. That's October 20th, 2552 to November 3rd, 2552, and then we kind of show up on Earth on November 17th, 2552. We also had that cutscene with Locke from the Anniversary Edition, Halo 2 Anniversary, which was October 27th, 2558. So that's the far future one. That kind of relates to Halo 5 and whatnot. Now, in Halo 3 ODST, Alpha 9 is deployed to help repel the Covenant's surprise invasion of Earth, but their orbital drop goes awry. The team is scattered across New Mombasa, and they must fight their way back together in order to protect an asset that could be the key to winning the war. And the date of the game, as we've stated pretty much the entire time, October 20th, 2552 to October 21st, 2552. We get a little epilogue, November 15th. That's that little Johnson epilogue, Johnson and Virgil, November 15th, 2052. And then the legendary ending, which we talked about last episode, where Truth shows up, is November 17th. Because, Chief and Truth are kind of showing up about the same time back on Earth. All right, so that's what we've done. We've done a lot. Now what we're going to do is kind of talk about how ODST compares to the games that we've played so far. So everything, the 3 games that we've played so far. What I want to do quickly before we do that is talk about this game as a total package, because the original plans, just from talking around and understanding, developer commentary and things like that, is the original plans was this going to be a DLC or an add-on to Halo 3, but it was then the decision was made to be a standalone game. Why don't I start with our guest to kind of talk about, I kind of want to get your overall thoughts too a little bit here, but what do you think about the package of ODST, Aaron?
I think they do a pretty good job overall, because I think I vaguely remember at the time ODST was announced being like, oh, there's no multiplayer in this Halo game, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. And then they went on to reveal the story, and then they revealed Firefight, and I was like, okay. And then we actually got to play a Firefight, and that totally made everything up for me. But I think lengthwise and size-wise, it's a solid campaign. It's as good as, I think it's, if you play the missions straight one after the other, it seems a little short, but New Mombasa Streets makes an awful good filler and padding for exploring your way through it, so it feels like an amazingly long, detailed campaign, and they're kind of being a little bit sneaky about it.
Right. Yeah.
But overall, I think like this stands pretty well. Like as the Halos go, it's probably my number 1 or 2 overall.
Oh, really? Oh, well,
Yeah.
so we'll hold on. Before we go down that road, we're going to rank stuff at the end. I'll force you to rank at least what games we played so far. Go ahead, David.
I was just saying, hot damn. Hot
Yeah.
damn. That's a hot take.
That's intense.
Yeah. Overall, as a package, I love it. I loved it when it came out. I was super happy at the time. I remember it being DLC and then being too big for DLC. I'm like, oh shit, this is going to be great. And to get like a whole new game that just totally surprised everybody. Not being Master Chief, being a weaker ODST, it was like super interesting, different kind of mechanics. I love the new weapons, even though like anything over heroic, they're like super weak. Do you know what I mean? So we've commented on various episodes like on how you play it and stuff. And there was some impossible achievements in this game. There's like the Vidmaster assassins, but there was stuff I never did. Could never have done. It takes some serious dedication, but I appreciate that they did so many co-op ones and made like so many specific things. I thought that was very clever. It was kind of cool. I like that idea. I love the.
So you think there's enough to do?
There's tons. I think just for the price that it was when it came out, which I can't really remember. I
think it was
full price
40.
Game?
I want to say it was 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was full price.
Don't think it was
because
full
they
price.
actually had some issues with the messaging from the marketing standpoint. Because I think when people heard it was at a $40 price point, which wasn't as common as it is now in 2019 now, people were like, "Wait a minute, so this isn't a full game? Like, what's going on here?"
Yeah, it was weird. But I super enjoyed it. I love Firefight. Didn't play that much of it, to be fair, because playing it solo felt weird. And at that time, I didn't have too many friends playing video games, and I wasn't big online back then. So like I didn't play that much of it, but I did enjoy it. I did super enjoy it. I thought it was great. The Firefight's awesome. I love that type. I mean, it was super unique for the time. The kind of the horde modes. I think that was first. I think that was one of the first kind of horde mode games I'd ever played. And I really liked it. I love the idea of holding a point and trying to fight off wave enemies. I've always enjoyed that type of gameplay. So having a whole mode in Halo dedicated to that, hell yeah, I love it.
And that was probably why, right? It was a $40 price point because they weren't ready to give up on Halo 3's multiplayer, and they didn't really include that in this title. Like, can you even boot up Halo 3's multiplayer from ODST?
You
Probably
get a
not.
separate disc.
That's right. For like,
there's the separate disc that just takes you to like the multiplayer menu screen.
yeah,
It's
that.
a little weird because you have this like Halo 3 disc that doesn't have the campaign on it.
but it has all the.
But it has all the
DLC
multiplayer, I think,
of
including all the
multiplayer.
map packs. Yeah.
That's right. I came to this game. I've talked about it before. I came to Halo a little later. This was one of my first Halo experiences, though, at least all the way through. I dabbled in Halo 3 a little bit when it came out, but I don't think I played much multiplayer. I don't think I finished the campaign right away. ODST was my first game, at least if my memory serves, which, I could be wrong. I remember it being my first game of Halo, and it was very intriguing. And I think part of the intrigue for me was probably that price point. It was like, wait a minute, it's not like. It's a little cheaper than the other games, so maybe this is just and I've always been kind of more of a campaign type guy, so I think that actually encouraged me to give it a try. It'd be interesting to hear from other people to see if that's the case, or if they were new to Halo, how many people were new to Halo with ODST. But I think it feels good, playing again the entire campaign, and then we'll kind of go through all the categories that we always do for this, but playing through the entire campaign, it felt like a Halo, like a complete Halo campaign. It didn't feel like I was really shorted out any, like I couldn't do this because it was just a partial game, or there weren't as many missions as I'm used to, or the missions weren't as long, or things like that. Like, it felt like a proper Halo game, which it is. So I think if they added this as a DLC to Halo 3, it would have just ballooned, especially for the technology at the time, it would have ballooned that total package a little bit to be a little bit too big. So I'm glad they did do this offshoot as a standalone. Feels good. And it also enabled them to explore the additional stories that they want to tell in Halo. this was the first, and they've done that a lot with the lore, but this was kind of the first time that they've done that with a specific game. They've since done that, with Halo Wars. Actually, did Halo Wars come out before this? It might have, actually. I think we talked about that in one of the first episodes, but it was the same year that Halo Wars came out as ODST. So they were starting to tell more of that expanded universe through gameplay versus just the books. Let's talk about... I want to also talk about this brand new mechanic, this brand new thing that they brought to Halo ODST was the new Mombasa missions, or the Mombasa Streets missions, where you're a rookie and you're in this saxophone dark city and this moody atmosphere that they have, wandering around, and the city eventually opens up. It's still, it's blocked off right away. How was that for you, Aaron? Aaron, have you been playing the series since kind of CE and then came to ODST in release order, or did you kind of pop in partway through?
I did play them in release order, but I came to them late. I played 1 and 2 in the run-up to Halo 3 because I think a friend had lent me the original books, so I read those, and then I think I was like a year out from Halo 3, so it was like, I'm going to rush these other 2 games and speed through them, so 3, I think, was the first game where I was on board at launch for Halo.
Okay, so you played 3 before ODST. So how was ODST for you? I guess as you played that, you played everything beforehand as it kind of should have been, and then now you're wandering around. Now you're doing this wandering thing, right? Like you're rookie, and it's just such a different experience.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. It's this whole different atmosphere. I think the moment it sort of clicked for me was when you finish your first flashback and you're standing there with Dur's helmet in your hand, and like the camera pans out through the window onto the street, and those signposts all light up with like diversion, caution, and all this, and this like the sexy saxophone kicks in, and it's just totally different to like anything that came before, because all the other Halos are, like, for the most part, they're bright, they're kind of loud, they're kind of bombastic. You've got Johnson, like, you've just done Halo 2, and you have Johnson.
Well, they're upbeat.
He's loud and,
they're intense.
Yeah. Whereas this is a bit more, like, it's dark, but it's not depressing, which I like. It's not like a sad game. You're moving around at night, you're going through these missions, and you have these like real personality filled characters, because this is the thing, when I played ODST, I'd never seen Firefly, so I had no clue really who these characters were. So Nathan Fillion has always been Buck to me, and later I found out, the ODST crew were in a TV show together. That's the way I came to this. Yeah, sort of backwards. But
that's crazy.
Like, yeah, but because of these sort of like great sci-fi actors, they bring an awful lot to, not to say the other games didn't, but like there's not a huge amount of character personality in one outside of Cortana. Like there's a little Keys and a little bit of Johnson here and there and Spark, but that's about it. Like they go further with 2, but like this, they're ramming it down your throat. It's just like, we've got personality by the bucket load.
Well, 2 is broad. Like there's a lot of personalities they add to it, and then with ODST, I feel like they kind of try to go deeper, so that there's more characters, but then they give you the opportunity to get to know them a little bit more than you do in other games that they've released. That's interesting. Any thoughts to add, I guess, on the new Mombasa Streets, David?
I love the gameplay mechanic. I'm surprised it hasn't shown up since, to be honest, because I think everyone's like commented on like, we'd love another ODST 2, we'd love another spin-off game like that of a smaller scale, especially with the wait for Infinite, like it's been so long since Halo 5. It was such a cool gameplay, the idea of you're investigating where your team went, so like it's you playing flashbacks of memories and stuff that already happened, and you're trying to piece together. I love the mechanic, the idea of that is super cool.
So why do you think they didn't, they force you to a beacon in order? Why do you think they did it that way versus kind of let you choose which beacon you wanted to go to first? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess to have a more directed story in chronology, to make it more chronologically easier, because if you played it out of sequence, it might feel weird for like whatever age person you were, you didn't really cop the time jumps and differences of different events happening at different times in different places around the city. It's probably easier to narratively tell a story in chronological order, even though I know you're getting flashbacks, but the flashbacks are in order. Do you know what I mean? So it probably makes sense for that kind of way of going, oh, how the hell is Romeo and Buck together if you haven't played Romeo and Buck meeting up beforehand? Do you know what I mean? And you're going back to where Romeo. Do you know what I mean? It's probably just easier that way. And I don't mind it. I don't need an open world Halo, really, to be honest.
It does. I mean, it opens up eventually as you're going around to pick up all of Sadie Story's logs.
Yeah, there's I think there is an option where there is 2 beacons at once. One of those, and then you can choose between either or. I think. I'm trying to remember. I can't. One of them.
I don't think so.
I think they're always directed. I want to say.
I believe so. But at the end, right before Kikawani Station, that's when you can go and just wander around the entire city, and then you can also boot up the game to just be Mombasa streets, like at the end, to kind of throws you back in there.
Oh yeah.
Aaron, wanted to get your thoughts on Sadie's story, not necessarily Sadie's story proper, but just kind of the act of going around and collecting all of the audio logs.
Good. I was hoping you guys were going to talk about this. I think something that it didn't dawn on me when I was first playing this game. It took a while till I figured it out. But all the little like interactions in the world that draw you to where something is. So like when you run down the street, there's like the markings up the middle that blow steam out in the direction you're going. And then if you go too far, one of the speed ramps will come up to tell you you've gone too far. And if you turn around, the speed ramp's lower to tell you you're going the right direction.
Because I thought that they were like protecting you, but maybe they're.
You'll notice
they're
if you go too far away from the phone, the ramps all lift up, and I assume it's trying to tell you you're going away. But if you turn around, they'll drop again. And then like the police sirens is the other thing, because like I used to wonder when it was going on, I was like, why is this siren going off and none of the others are? Because you'll see cars with flashing lights and that, but and the car alarms and that. So I thought that was. Like there's none of the other Halo worlds like come to life and interact with you in the same way that like these two, where they're trying to tell you that look, there's a thing here.
Well, and it's also because of that the superintendent exists in this game, and so it just does a great job of immersing you in that fact.
You get these signs and they point you in the right direction, and you know the phones all light up and spit coins out. It's very cool, although those payphones definitely hold a lot of coins because they've been spinning for a long time in theory.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you, I guess, any other thoughts on the act of actually collecting them? Did you enjoy that activity, or was it more of a hassle for you?
No, I think I did. I do remember being stuck on the last one because I think I picked some up as I went through the campaign, and then I went back to get the rest, and I used a guide to find them, but of course I missed one somewhere along the time, so I do remember like banging my head against a wall for ages because there was one just small chunk of the city that I kept missing. So I think that was the only little like bit of grief with it, but I enjoyed them. Like it's a really good, well acted out thing.
They're a great collectible.
Yes, and they're great, like odd little. Even as a standalone little audio drama, it's fantastic. Like if they just released that as an episode you could listen to, you'd be quite happy.
I like how it forces you to wander around the city and explore nooks and crannies that you wouldn't have maybe otherwise unless you had a reason to. I mean, a lot of people will just kind of wander around a game that doesn't have collectibles, but just that video game mechanic of, hey, you have all these things to do and collect. Go see all the other cool stuff that we've crammed into this world for you. Having that story as the driver for that makes total sense for Halo, as opposed to, I don't know, like a currency or something like that. I like it. It does get a little tedious just if you're starting to pick up a few here and there, and then you have to go back and try to figure out which ones you missed and all that. But that, you know, that sort of collectible aspect of games has been kind of tightened up since. So if ODST came out now, then they would have done a better job of like numbering them or something like that, just to kind of respect the player's time and things like that. But well, cool. Let's get into some comparisons now. I want to, this is the fourth game, and we're not going to necessarily rank the what we think of each. I think I have 8 categories, so I'll just mention them. We're going to talk about gameplay, we're going to talk about weapons, vehicles, enemies, level design, and then lore and characters are kind of the same. So I want to kind of go through that. We'll just kind of talk about how it maybe relates or is different from the other games that we've played so far. So let's kind of start at the top. Gameplay overall. David, how are you feeling about gameplay? Again, we're in the Halo 3 engine, which we'll play Halo 3 next. And there's a few things that we can't do as an ODST that we can do as a Spartan. So we probably won't cover off on that stuff quite yet. Maybe like in the recap show of Halo 3, we'll cover off on that stuff. But ODST from a gameplay standpoint, as we've played Halo 2 previous, CE, and Reach, how are you feeling about the changes, the enhancements that they made?
I've always liked it. I've always liked the weaker element. You are weaker, but you don't really feel it that much. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like being a Spartan and not being a Spartan and being an ODST. I think it works really well in the context of the game, of what you're doing. So I love that. I do like it. I like it a lot. Obviously I prefer a Spartan, but I do like the juxtaposition, what it's like being a soldier in this world, because we're always super soldiers. So we're always, again, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of different. So you have to think in terms of the story, what these ODSTs achieve is really impressive.
Well, they give you health packs now, which I think is kind of helps in your brain. That makes sense to you now. From a player standpoint, I'm saying you played, CE had health packs, but then they took it out in 2, and then they took it out in 3, and now that you're ODST, you're supposed to be weaker. It would make sense that you have to go heal yourself versus just having your power suit.
Yeah, I think some of that is, I think some of that's just kind of how games changed back then, where like everything had health packs, and then all of a sudden it was the red screen of death that would slowly come in red, and then you die, and slowly go back from red to clear, and then all video games were doing that at a period of time. So that's just, I think, how the game's changed over the years, as opposed to like, okay, now you have health packs, and then now you don't, and there's just been a story reason why, lore reason why. I don't really think too deep into that, to be honest.
Okay.
But I like it. I've always liked being in an ODST. I thought it was cool. I like the idea. It is a very team-based game, and that makes sense from the fact that ODSTs would have to work in teams. Do you know what I mean? There would rarely be. You don't really hear about solo soldiers that much in the world of Halo. I know they exist, but like for the most part, everybody works in teams, and it works
Aaron,
really well.
Aaron, maybe you can comment on this and then talk about gameplay. But I'm forgetting. Can you do 4-player co-op in ODST?
You can do 4-player online co-op. Well, you could in the original. I assume it's the same in Master Chief Collection. I think you can do 2-player split screen as well.
Okay.
But I think it's 4-player. I think they're all. If you could do 4-player online, you can do 4-player in MCC.
Okay. So you can't do couch co-op 4-player split screen.
No, you can do 2 though. So.
Gotcha. I ask you because I know you've been playing through these games with your niece and nephew, I believe.
Yes.
So talk about gameplay from your perspective as it stacks up to the previous games. How are you feeling about like the evolution? And maybe just playing as a ODST also, as opposed to playing from a Spartan, kind of what David talked about.
I mostly like it. Some things I'm not a fan of. I personally, with the trade-off of losing your shields because you're an ODST, I kind of would have liked regenerating health, even if it was slow. I know it doesn't really fit in with the lore, but there's a few times, especially on Heroic and Legendary, where you can get caught in an area and you can have your heartbeat pulsing in your ears and you have nowhere to go and you're just pinned down by enemies, and it can be a little unpleasant. So I think maybe a little advantage to being an ODST might have been a thing. But a lot of the other stuff I really like. The visor is really fun. just to
that
like
was
get
cool.
out at night to
Yeah.
be able to equip it and see these enemy outlines and outlines of vehicles and all this like extra information it gives you, which like ironically is far more information than you've had playing as any of the Spartans so far. You have like this added extra dimension.
Yeah, that's true.
The rest of it I'm pretty good with. I like the fact that I think they lower your camera view slightly so that all the enemies are bigger because you're only a small human. It's a little touch, but
Yeah, that's great.
You have to look up a little higher at all the enemies, and the grunts seem a little bigger. But
Yeah.
overall, I enjoy it. I think the only other thing about this game is we'll talk about it in weapons in a minute. There's one weapon missing that I just really miss. But,
Okay. Well, I've kind of talked about my thoughts throughout, so nothing really to add, I don't think, based off of what you guys have said. This game does feel like, and maybe this is part of the reason I like Halo 3 so much, is Halo 3 and ODST were kind of my entry to Halo, and so this feels like home. Like this gameplay, these weapons, these feel like Halo to me, and then everything else is a variation based off of this versus, if I started with CE going forward. So it's just a little different approach, and that's probably just, everybody has that same experience based off their first Halo game or their first game of any franchise. As the game, creates sequels and things like that, that the first is usually one of the most well thought of or thought of most fondly by that gamer. So, but I love this gameplay. It feels tight. It's solid. It's great. I didn't play much Firefight here and there, and we still might. We haven't done that yet, but we still might kind of do a YouTube of us playing Firefight together. I do want to kind of get that experience, but there's just so many other games, so many other things to play, not only within Halo, but just out there in general. It's just difficult to make time for that, especially it being an older game. But it is proper fun if you have a group of people to play Firefight with. It's a good time. Let's talk about some weapons. Now, Aaron, what do you want to mention that weapon?
Yeah, I was only... there is a lack of BR in this game, which phases me greatly because they give you the pistol, and the pistol is probably the second best pistol next to the Combat Evolved pistol.
Well,
I like it a lot.
It's probably so far, right? I mean, I'm forgetting the exact feel of the Halo 4 and Halo 5 one, but anyway, continue.
SMG, yeah, I'd rather have an assault rifle. I do like the addition of silencers.
Yeah,
I love the addition of silencers.
Yeah, this is the first Halo where we've had that, so it is nice, but I feel like the SMG doesn't pack the same sort of punch as the assault rifle.
It doesn't really. It needs to be dual wielded, which doesn't have the,
which is one. Yeah, that's another thing you don't have in this. But BR, and if you go back as far as reach, DMR, like I prefer the DMR personally, but the BR would be my other weapon, that kind of like mid-range. It's very rare that I get up into an enemy's face, and I feel like an ODST a lot of the time. Even though while I enjoy it, a lot of the time my strategy is to run up to the brutes and spray them with the SMG.
Yeah.
Wait for their shields to pop and then headshot them with a pistol straight away, or plasma pistol and pistol.
What about Covenant weapons?
Covenant weapons, I tend to
They're all
not
the
use
same.
them as much. Yeah, I mostly go for Covenant for the heavy weapons. I'll grab a brute shot or a fuel rod cannon. That'll be my go-to. Like I said, if you're playing on a harder difficulty, the plasma pistol's very good because it'll pop that armor off everyone nice and quick. But like the brute plasma rifle, I'm not a big fan of. I know it has a higher rate of fire, but I wouldn't.
It overheats too
tend
fast
to
for
use
me.
it much. Yeah. So I think plasma pistol's probably my most used. Carbine's handy as well because that kind of gets close to like that DM or BR sort of weapon for me.
Yeah, the carbine's great for that.
I don't really use the needler a lot, so I have no thoughts on it.
David, any highlights for you?
Yeah,
we
I
talked
do
about
love
the flamethrower a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, man, the flamethrower. I love the addition of the flamethrower. That's my favorite weapon in this game. For that, even for that sequence that you get to use it in, it's so much fun. I do love the new weapons. The new pistol, I agree with Aaron, it's pretty high up there in terms of weapons being great. There is also the SMG. I try and use it as much because it is the new weapon in the game, but like above normal, it's pretty useless. You have to go Covenant weapons. I didn't use Needler much in this game. I do love Plasma Pistol and the Carbine. I do a lot of them for popping shields and getting headshots. They're pretty good. As well as the two snipers, they're pretty handy. And once you get the caches open and you start getting the heavy weapons, it's pretty fun. So I do love the addition of the mongoose in the streets and stuff like that. I know we're going to talk about vehicles
we didn't talk about that.
It's pretty cool. I think it was a great addition, especially because of the end game. It does make the game way faster. That's the only thing. Like if you have those unlocks from the start, as soon as you get a mongoose, you jump in and you just bolt it to your next beacon. You can like fly through this game super fast. So I didn't actually I only did that a few times. I think I talked to 3 episodes when I was kind of getting through, because I don't have much to collect in the streets, so I didn't spend that much time on this playthrough, but I did love exploring it originally. That was awesome.
Yeah, weapons for me, I dabble, kind of. I pick up a lot and play with a big variation. You know, I mentioned before I love my assault rifle, so I default to that a lot. And I love having a heavy weapon too. You know, if it's a rocket launcher or like a fuel rod, like Aaron mentioned. But I mean, all the weapons are useful for me in some capacity, just because I run out of ammo a lot. And so I kind of get familiar with each type, and I feel like each type does have a kind of a purpose or a place. You know, like it's like, oh man, I really wish I had a needler here, because it would, you know, I'm at a distance and it could really help me take out this brute or two, you know, in this situation, just based off of everything else that's going on or something like that. So all of the weapons get kind of a pretty good use from me. You know, still love my carbine too from a Covenant standpoint. That's just a beautiful weapon for me. And I was using the beam rifle towards the end, like especially in that last mission, using the beam rifle a little bit here and there. So, yeah, all good from a weapons perspective for me. We're gonna lose Aaron here pretty soon, so we're gonna try to cruise through this next couple sections. Let's talk about vehicles. Aaron, any favorite vehicles? It's a little different again because you do get the mongoose in the new Mombasa streets, and you can pick up a ghost. But then all the missions, I think pretty much everybody's here, except for you can't get into a wraith.
Yeah, I think for vehicle missions, the only time with vehicles I think I really enjoy myself is Uplift Reserve. I think the rest of the time, like vehicles in the city, if you can get a hold of that ghost when you're on the streets, that makes life a lot of fun. I didn't really tend to use the mongoose a lot because for some reason it irrationally annoys me that I have to stop and get off it to open the doors.
Yeah.
But it doesn't annoy me as much with the ghost because I can still shoot people with it. Mm-hmm. But I think Uplift Reserve is a nice fun because it's such a long level. Like the Savo Highway or the Coastal Highway at the end is a long level, but I feel like there's not a big pile to do in it. You're shooting, if you're the driver, it's all mostly straight line, weave around burned out cars. The gunner's having the fun there.
Right.
Whereas in the zoo you get to weave around everything and you're moving through the enclosures, and there's a few fun times where stuff jumps out at you. I think Warthog overall, like just to get through that level with the Warthog is a lot of fun. The Brute Chopper, because I do quite enjoy those.
Oh, you do? We talked about that during that episode,
Yeah.
and I think Krista was the only one that liked it.
I'm a fan of the Brute Chopper. There's something, the like cannons on it are kind of punchy. I like just tearing through ghosts and stuff with them, and
They
it
do
has
feel
that nice
heavy.
little boost.
Yeah, they have a heavy feel.
So
Cool.
I enjoy them.
David, any other mentions for you?
I do love the mission where you play as Buck in the Kasingo station when you're doing the Flying the Banshee. And that's probably my favorite. I do like that one a lot. Do good shout out. Uplift Reserve is really good fun. So good shout out to that. Coastal Highway is okay. Just it's got a good variety because you get the Gauss Hog as well as the Scorpion. But in terms of vehicles, I probably would say I do like that Banshee mission.
They do. I mean, it does a good. You're not a Spartan anymore in this game. You're the ODST. That's clear. But the game feels like Halo in that it does a great job of weaving in vehicles throughout all the missions. You're not just on foot the entire time. You still have the ability to hop on any vehicle that you want, pretty much outside of the Wraith. And then at certain points you're forced to take like the Banshee or a Warthog. I wouldn't imagine. Is there like achievement for walking through Coastal Highway? Because that sounds awful.
I don't think so.
there is, but it definitely sounds like it's awful enough that there could have been an achievement for it.
Right. I would not want to do that on foot. So they do a good job of weaving the vehicles throughout, as they do in all Halo games. So vehicles, all good from my perspective. Enemies now, Aaron, you kind of mentioned you're shooting a little bit higher. Or you're shorter. You're not a Spartan anymore. You're shooting up a little bit, and I don't feel like the enemies are that much more difficult. Maybe they tweaked that a little bit, but it felt normal to me. How about you?
I feel like they're kind of similar as before.
Well, technically they shouldn't be, other than from maybe a melee perspective, because you're using the same weapons.
That's
so
true.
They shouldn't really feel that much different.
Exactly.
I think the only thing with them is the brutes are just far more aggressive than what you're used to with elites.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. They'll run up and get into your face and beat the life out of you. I enjoy them. I enjoy fighting brutes. It can be a little bit of a nuisance when they go into berserk mode and you just have a lot of trouble hitting them because they keep running past walls.
Mm-hmm.
I have an awful habit of hiding on top of crates and things, and then sometimes they can get a bit upset with you. About the only thing with enemies is invincibility mode with chieftains can be a pain.
Yeah.
That's about the only nuisance, but overall I think it's pretty similar to before. The jackals are just as dead shot and awful as always. The grunts
lots
are
of drones in this game.
Lots of drones, yeah. Although I do feel like they go splat a little bit easier than they did in Halo 2.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when you do meet drones in Halo 2, it takes a little bit longer to hit them all. But for the most part, I feel like you get a lot of drones in self-contained areas in ODST. When you're in Data Hive and that, it's not as open. Same with the tunnels. They're more of a nuisance when they've got room to move around.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, it's like, here's the drone section, right? And then...
Yes, it may as well be just those little ducks when you go to the fun fair and you've got a pellet gun.
Yeah.
And they're just moving.
Yeah, pretty much. Any other thoughts, David, on enemies?
No, it's pretty much the same. They're pretty standard throughout the game. I like them all. I don't mind the brutes. I do love the lore perspective that there's no elites in this for the very specific reason that the war happened and that all the elites here have been massacred. Like when you stumble across a section as book and it's all dead elites everywhere, and you get a sense of the Covenant infighting and the big betrayal there, and that was kind of cool to see at that level as a grunt, as a soldier, and dare and not telling them because it's classified and stuff. So I did enjoy that. I think they do a good variety given the fact that you don't have elites, so they've taken those out. So I think between all the grunts, jackal types, the drones and the brutes, they think they do a good job, and they intersperse you with vehicles and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. I think it's well done.
Yeah. They don't add any enemies though, they just take out the elites.
Yeah.
Alright, let's talk about a couple more things, then we're going to lose our friend Aaron. Level design. This might be a bigger question, but Aaron, does this feel like a normal Halo game to you from that perspective?
I think it does. I prefer the design of this New Mombasa to the Halo 2 New Mombasa, which felt a little weird. I think they called it the old city, but this feels like a nice urban metropolis, and as design goes, it's enjoyable. I think the hill on Oni Alpha site is probably one of my most memorable Halo levels. working your way through that and defending from the Covenant up the hill. I think it's enjoyable. Like you kind of see where they've learned along the way from 1 and 2. You can see how this influenced Reach as you go on. Like you get a feel for Reach's environments take a lot of cues from this. Even though if you've done them backwards, this takes a lot of cues from Reach. But I enjoy them. Like as levels go, they're fun. Like you don't feel like you're missing anything for the lack of alien levels.
Sure.
Like there's nothing Halo-y in this. There's no Forerunner-y stuff really that you ever see, but I enjoy them. Like I think they're good, especially the city. Like the city is well thought out,
and it's packed full of stuff.
Yes,
more so than
lots
Halo
of
2.
clever, lots of clever little things. Like there's alleys you won't realize exist, and there's a few spots where I don't know if you talked about the hidden engineers that you can, like, they're almost like collectibles around the city.
Yeah.
But there's a few spots we'll walk along and hear a noise and then suddenly realize a wall's opened up and stuff like that. So I think it's cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of iconic. Every Halo game has iconic missions, but there's a lot included here too. I mentioned we've already talked about the Uplift Reserve. That's one of my favorite missions. The Banshee mission is really good here. Data Hive is super interesting. There's a lot of good stuff in here, and it does feel like it doesn't feel like you're just playing like a kind of Halo game. It feels as good, as tight, as many options that you're used to having in terms of how you approach each mission. I think they did a really good job of continuing that continuity, I guess, that feel from the previous games to ODST. They present all the options that you have in the other games you pretty much have in this game as well. So I think they do a good job from that standpoint. And any other thoughts, David?
Yeah, I think they did an amazing job, really, because consider like what Halo was up to this point was kind of bombastic locations, like exotic locations, alien locations, and we don't have that. We've got one city, a city, and when you think about the diverse locations you get and the memories throughout the city, I think it's great. And just how different each memory feels. And you've got Buck, who plays like on the streets the same as the rookie, but in daytime, and it feels different. And then you have like Romeo and Buck playing up on the rooftops, which is kind of super cool as well. Like that was really a great set piece. And then you've got Uplift Reserve, so you're in like a zoo kind of thing, and that's kind of fascinating. And like to see the different kind of kind of geospheres, like biospheres that you move through, and it's kind of different environments. I think that's all really clever use in terms of what can you get into a city that's still variable. And then, as I said, like the Oni's awesome, like, you know, fighting up that big hill and then defending the tower, and like it was awesome. It was such a great mission design, and that was very, very well done.
Yeah, nice. All right, so last two categories here are lore and characters. Let's just kind of mash them together. From a lore perspective, how does this game feel to you, Aaron? Is it important that they told this story, or was this something that they could have skipped and told a different way?
I think to the overall lore, I don't know if ODST is... I don't know if it's like critical to the overall lore. It fills in what happens mostly between Halo 2 and 3, but like what happens to this ODST team in and of itself isn't terribly... I don't think it's terribly important to the larger story, but I'm very glad that they told this story, because I think like, they did a great job of, in the space of 8 hours, they build these characters and they feel like real characters, because from the get-go, and you have that first interaction with, you know, Dur and Buck on the ship in orbit, you immediately have this ton of, you know, there's history here, there's backstory, there's interaction between these characters, and then as you go on, you like slowly build up who this entire team are, you know, who the smart ass is, and who the cool one is, and all the rest of it. I think they do an amazing job with them, but I think that's a lot to do with the actors, like the caliber of actors they have for these characters.
Right.
Not to say that the others didn't do it, but as memorable characters go, I think ODST has a lot of people's favorites.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we're having that conversation in one of our groups right now, and Buck is generally one of the most favorably looked upon Halo characters. You know, they did a good job with him. A lot of that might be Nathan Fillion and his voice and things like that. But I'll kind of touch on my thoughts really quickly. I was confused, especially towards the end. I was a little confused, again, originally playing this game. Now playing it again, everything kind of makes a lot more sense. But, like, especially the epilogue, the legendary epilogue was just kind of weird to me. Maybe it still is. But I guess it just shows that, hey, truth shows up. But at that point, if you played Halo 3, you kind of know, what's going on. So the story that they tell is interesting, but as I was summing up too, I did the summary at the very beginning. Not a whole lot happens, at least especially not as much in Halo 2. So much happens, but you're this group of ODSTs, you drop, and then you eventually find Virgil and engineers, and that's kind of the crux of it, right? But I do like all of the characters and the way that was presented. It's a fun story. I love the fact that ODST is a thing, but to drive the larger Halo story forward, they probably could have done this in a comic or something else like that. I'm glad they did do the game. But David, any other thoughts there, kind of along those lines?
Yeah, you're all hitting the mark. I think it is a side story, but it's a very interesting, very well told side story. I mean, other stories have branched out of this, but none of them are actually hugely influential. Instead, maybe we'll see how Buck's character developed after Halo 5. I won't go into any details on Halo 5, but let's just say this is the background story to a character and that comes into a mainline game. So that's probably the most important thing about all of this, because even Virgil and the books that spin off that include Sadie, like Bad Blood and New Blood, that include like Alpha 9 coming back together and other kinds of, I won't spoil the books, but like there's other things, and there's betrayals that are surprising. Like all that takes place outside of the games and is kind of, I'd say, no disrespect to the books or anything, kind of side lore. Let's say they're not huge. I mean, the ramifications of those missions and stuff like that is kind of smaller scale. It is kind of developing like those characters individually, but not really pushing the boat out in terms of like crazy story or crazy mass events that influence like everything else that happens afterwards. But all of it is fascinating and I think well told. So I love the characters, I love where they all go and what happens next. But mostly, Buck is the only real character in this, I think, of major consequence, and I include Virgil in that as well. Because he does come back, and that is important really for humanity, but you don't ever feel it. Do you know what I mean?
And part of it is it's because you're not the hero in this game. You're not the one that saves the universe in this game. You're just a team that participates in it. So from that perspective, that it feels like a side story. Not that they're not doing anything important, and the engineers do play into the larger games. Can we get, real quick before we lose Aaron, can we get a ranking of the 4 games from you?
Cool. I will give you mine. So far, ODST, Reach 1 and 2.
Number 1, ODST?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Say them again. I cut you off.
Oh, you're okay. ODST, Reach, Combat Evolved, and 2.
Oh, really?
In that order.
Interesting. All right, we'll let you go, Aaron. He's got to run to work, and David and I will take it from here. Thanks for joining.
No bother, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
David.
Yo.
We've talked. I always forget my rankings.
I have no idea what my rankings are.
I've listened to the previous recaps, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I was thinking in the moment. So it probably changes from recap to recap. So I guess in this moment, now that we've played ODST on top of the other games, where are you staying? What's your rank right now?
ODST was always pretty high in my story, but like my favorite was always going to be Halo CE. I don't actually think that will change. So Halo CE will probably be my first ranking. How do I feel about this over Reach? That's kind of hard, because I do love the story of Reach, but I love these characters way more. Like I think I like Alpha 9 more than I like Noble Team.
Okay.
That's hard. So I'm going to say ODST 3, then Reach, then 2. I think is going to be my ranking right now.
Okay, so give me again in order of 1.
Halo CE.
Number 1. Okay.
ODST.
Then ODST. Okay.
Reach, Halo 2.
And so I think that was
Which is so strange to think about, but yeah. That's the
that
way.
was flipped a little bit from what Aaron
Yeah.
had. All right. So for me, I'm trying to remember what I said before. I think I ended up liking Reach the best, and I think that was like a total package thing. So I'm gonna go.
I think both you and Krista like Reach. I remember that.
Yeah.
Over like I think I definitely number one was CE for me, and you guys were both Reach.
Yeah, and again, they're all great games. They're all good games.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna go Reach first, and then I'm gonna go Halo 2,
Oh wow.
and then I'm gonna go ODST and then CE. That's almost kind of backward? No, it's not backwards,
Yeah.
but
It's blasphemous, is what it is. But whatever.
that's just how I'm feeling right now.
yeah. All right.
And again, it will change as we continue to play the games. And I don't even remember what it said, so I'll have to listen to this when we're done here. But that's kind of in the moment. That's how I'm feeling about it. All right. So as we mentioned, Aaron had to bail, but let's just talk about any other highlights of the game proper, and then we just have a couple other things to touch on. We have some community thoughts, and then we'll move on. We'll get on to finish the fight after this. Any other thing you just want to kind of just mention that we haven't maybe touched on or spent much time on as it relates to this game?
I do love how the side story of Sadie Stories intertwines with the gameplay, even if you're not aware of it, of the importance of Virgil and how he changes over the course of the game and eventually merges to become, well, Quickstart just merges with the engineer. I think the introduction of engineers into a game so we could actually see them visually is huge, bringing that new race in as like mechanics and technical whizzes, and it totally makes sense now in terms of like it was kind of like a missing link in the Covenant of like how can these people who are so religious fanatics be actually technically adept when they're kind of venerating these Forerunner artifacts, and how they get around it is the engineers, which are essentially Forerunner constructs still alive. And
they don't necessarily talk about that specifically in this game. They do an extended lore.
Yeah, you
but
kind of have to look.
It does, knowing that they're around, and they do kind of talk about what they do. It helps at least draw that conclusion from the player.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely felt terrible at the end when you like killed a bunch of them, because you don't know anything about them when you see them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're buffing your enemies. They're giving them extra shields. So like, of course you're going to attack them. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, when you find out what they are and what happened to them, it's so sad. Like, and you feel really genuinely bad. They're
especially Sadie's story
slaves.
too. Fold that in.
Oh yeah, totally. Like when you kind of cop on, I love how it changes the rookie story a little bit, just in terms of we spoke about it in the Data Hive, where that little cutscene kind of is subtly changed based on the knowledge that the rookie has gained through the stories, which I thought was great, and how the last one kind of happens with like the little story with that police officer, blanking on his name, but the corrupt officer. That was so cool. It was so fascinating. I loved that. Yeah. No, not Mike, the corrupt one that you actually fight.
Kinsler, yeah.
No, the actual cop you fight in the game.
Oh yeah, I don't know if he has a name. Sorry.
Yeah, he may not have a name, but that guy, it was just so cool. So I do love that. Again, I love the mission design. I thought it was very well done. Each memory was fascinating, interesting. Do you know what I mean? Engaging. It was really good.
Yeah. I think I'd just probably be repeating myself of my other thoughts. I like going through the categories because that helps me kind of compartmentalize my comments. But overall package, I'm happy with it. Definitely. I always think fondly of ODST as being one of my first Halo 3 games. Lots of great missions are included, so definite thumbs up. Not my favorite, clearly, I guess, but one of my, it's Halo, so it's all good from my perspective.
Oh yeah, and we haven't touched on it enough. Amazing soundtrack, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So the soundtrack and the city itself being a character was marvelous. That went well with the music and with actually having an AI in the city and things happening, and it was just so atmospheric. It was beautiful. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, let's just talk quickly about what's next, because we're gonna play Halo 3 now. Finally, we're gonna play Halo 3.
Woo!
But there's a month in between now and when Chief shows up, as you saw at the very end of Halo 2. So things happen. There is some extended lore out there if you do want to check that out. There's a Halo Uprising is a comic from Marvel that Marvel helped produce, and that kind of tells the story of what Chief was doing on this dreadnought when they're going through slip space. And then the book Ghosts of Onyx touches on. It's not the main focus of the book. It's a good chunk of it, but it talks about kind of what else is going on between October 21st and November 17th, because that's a long time for the Covenant to be on Earth. When
really is.
Previously they could have just. I mean, Reach took a little while, but I mean, really they have the technology just to glass Earth. And we the UNSC humans have learned to defend ourselves, but it's still the Covenant, and they're still this huge force, and they're on our home planet. So there's more to find out and look into from that perspective. Anything else, David, before community stuff? I'm gonna put all the weight on you for that.
I know, I'm here because other two people suck. So
okay.
Let's go into Discord. So in the Discord, there was a message posted by a certain Colin Perkins. What's the best moment or sequence from a Halo 3 ODST? Bracket question for Mission Debrief 3 ODST recap episode, close bracket. We have Shipmaster Ratas Vadum says the space elevator collapsing. Oh shit, we never talked about that. That was awesome. Seeing the big guy wobble before falling really makes it look cool and scary. That was really cool. Yeah, that was very well done. Min says, does it have to be a story or can it be gameplay? Okay. Just asking a question. Only alpha exploding for cutscenes. Flying through the city for gameplay. Space elevator moment is cool too. Min says, my favorite moment is the game is probably when you're doing the Only Alpha site and the entire mission can eventually be distilled into Runaway. My favorite story moment is when you first meet Virgil. That's a good shout out. Ian says again, the space elevator. I think that's cute. The cute cruiser glass in the city. That was pretty cool. We haven't really talked about that, but that's in Coastal Highway when the cruiser kind of. There's some great. That skybox is amazing. Down the Coastal Highway, and it's like all the Covenant ships are just glassing the city in the background, and there's scarabs moving and banshees everywhere, and then a heavy super cruiser kind of comes in and starts glassing the highway you're on, and it's so. The cutscene, or I can't see this because it's green. It's Axel. The cutscene after the highway is definitely the best moment in the game. Watching the cruiser glass the city is amazing. The other cool moment is when you are walking in the dark night and the saxophone, the difference of darkness starts to play. That's pretty cool, yeah. Yep. Difference for darkness, sorry, that's the song. Again, this is crazy green that I can't read. It's redacted. Here we go. It's got to be an opening cutscene for me. I love how this game ties in with the Halo game. Right, you can't tell me otherwise. Look, your favorite line by Buck. Remember when I told you to shut up? Consider that a standing order. Yeah, that's a pretty cool line.
That's good. Yeah. Very good line.
Matt,
lots of good dialogue. Lots of good dialogue.
Oh, amazing dialogue. Yeah. The music, being able to explore the city at night. Two of the least Halo-y parts about the game. That's what Matt loves. The cutscene with the drop pod. Oh yeah, that's actually amazing to be honest. Yeah. When you're actually in the drop pod in the first person.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the cruiser slip space out, and it's just it's so cool. And being able to see a glimpse of you and DC Ampersand was a fun connection to Halo 2. I never noticed that actually.
Is it in there, or is that?
Really small though.
I have to look real closely.
I don't know. So that was Discord, which is pretty good. Pretty good shout out.
Just a couple on Facebook, I think.
Yeah. Jump in there now. The screen, see the other one. Of course, it didn't hold the goddamn.
Of course.
2 seconds, people. Push the buttons. Where are you? Here, pockets of on. Here we go. We have Edgar says the first cutscene where Buck and Dare enters the briefing room, and it says, you know the music, time to dance. And Tyler says favorite moment is from the epilogue when Quick to Adjust / Virgil helps Sergeant Major Johnson with lighting a cigar. That was pretty random. Yeah, that was pretty cool. When the NMPD dickwad gets served by Virgil and the drones.
That's his name, Dickwad.
Yeah, Dickwad. Okay, there we go. Thanks, Matthew. Lance says, I like the fact that the rookie spent almost the entire game asleep in his pod with the rest of the team as leading warthogs through a zoo, holding the line at the Only Alpha site, and finally fighting for their lives on top of a skyscraper and in the flooded subway tunnels. That's very true.
He was taking a nap.
And Brad says, dropping in from orbit is still one of the best sequences in Halo. Yeah, I totally forgot about that, but excellent shout out, guys.
Yeah.
And that's Facebook.
All right, are we ready?
I think we are, dude.
To finish the fight. Let's
do it. I feel so nervous.
I know, I get butterflies every time
it's good.
I start thinking about it.
I haven't played Halo 3 in a long time.
I've been holding out. I've been wanting to play for like a year.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm
that'll
with that
do
with
it.
Halo 5. I'm holding out.
Yeah,
I'm dying to
yeah.
play it again.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, that'll do it for our recap of Halo 3 ODST. On the next episode, we'll be covering Arrival and Sierra 117 from Halo 3. Send us your thoughts at podcastevolved@gmail.com or drop us a tweet at podcastevolved on Twitter. Until next time, evolved.
Evolved. And I'm Aaron Evolved. There you go. Or Evolved. I'll keep that in.
Evolved.